All right, welcome to tonight's live lesson. It's going to be a free-for-all tonight, so hopefully we'll have a lot of participation. This is available to members every week. For the next hour, I'll be with you, and I'll be giving you advice, little things I've picked up along the way. Tonight we're going to be talking about the basics. Well, we're going to be talking about some things about drawing that are maybe just some little fun things. We're going to play a couple creativity enhancing games. We're going to talk about basically the basics of representational drawing. And when I'm talking about the basics of representational drawing, or observational drawing I should say, I'm talking about the nuts and the bolts basics. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you can use a device that I've kind of picked up that will help you draw from your imagination. My name's Matt, and I'm glad that you're going to be a part of tonight's live lesson. I'll remind you that the lesson is recorded as we speak and will be available for members after we are done. In the next couple of days, I will upload it to the membership site. I also want to remind you that if you take your mouse and scroll over the top of the video, a little arrow will pop up and it says sidebar. If you click on that and then click on chat, then you are able to chat live. And I'm going ahead and putting my name in there. And you can shoot any questions that you might have to me, or say hello to other people who might be watching, or whatever you want to put in there as long as it's appropriate. That'll be great. So if any questions come up along the way, you're free to interact and ask those questions, and I will answer them. And let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start tonight off with a quote. And it's basically from an ancient, or I don't know if it's an ancient, but it's a Chinese proverb. And the way it is I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, and I do and I understand. So when we hear things, we tend to forget what we hear. When we see things, we tend to remember it. When we do things, we tend to understand it. So tonight is going to be about doing things, and therefore we can better understand it. So like I said, there's going to be three parts. We're basically going to talk about observational drawing, the nuts and bolts of observational drawing, how we can take some of the things we learned from observational drawing and apply it to drawing from our imagination, and then the last thing we're going to do is talk about creativity and kind of flex those creativity muscles. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about observational drawing. And when we do observational drawing, it's important for us to understand that it's basically a process that we go through. And basically the process is centered around what we see. So if we start with the eye, that information then goes to our brain. Then our brain takes that information to our hand, of course when we're drawing. And then our hand puts that information on the paper in our drawing, okay, or surface. And then this process is repeated. So we go back to the eye, brain, hand, paper, and surface. And this is basically the gist of drawing from observation. This is what should happen in our mind, or happen in the process. The problem is, many of us throughout our life have been taught to draw certain things with a certain process, and that's not necessarily what drawing's all about. In fact, when you learn how to and when you learn the basics of drawing, you can draw anything that you want. So that's what we're going to start with. And what I would encourage you to do is find an object that might be sitting near you. It can be something that's complex, or it can be something that's simple. I have this pair of pliers here that I'm going to be using for this demonstration. And the first thing I want you to do is just set the object up where you can see it. You can I'm just going to put mine off screen here on a little book that's in front of me. And I'm going to place it at an angle that's somewhat of a challenge for me. And then what I want you to do is we're going to do what's called a blind contour line drawing. And what a blind contour line drawing is you are going to do one continuous line drawing of your object and just the contours. Contours are the outlines. So you're going to only do a continuous contour line drawing of your object, but you cannot pick your pencil up once it hits the surface. So that's what's a continuous line. You'll just make one continuous line for the whole drawing. Now the second part, the second rule, is more difficult, and that is you can't look at your drawing. So you're going to have to trust me on this. I'm going to only look at my object, and I'm going to try to move my hand with my pencil at the same speed that I move my eye over the surface of the object. So I'm going to be looking at only the line. So I'm going to go ahead and do this now. And I'm not going to pick my pencil up. You'll have to trust me that I'm not looking at my paper. So I'm trying to move my hand at the same speed that I'm moving my eyes over the surface. And this is an exercise. A lot of the stuff that we're going to be doing tonight are exercises, and sometimes exercises can be painful, but the whole purpose is to promote growth and not necessarily get the finished result. So you might exercise to get in better shape to perform well in a basketball game, for example. So what we're creating here is not necessarily a finished drawing. It's just preparation and exercise to get better when we do a drawing. Okay, so I'm finished now. This is my blind contour line drawing. And it's obviously called a blind contour line drawing because it's blind in the fact that we don't look at our drawing while we're drawing it. It's contour line drawing. Contours are the outlines. And again, this is an exercise. Now, I know a lot of people have probably done this before, but never maybe were explained why you did this or what the purpose of this was. So hopefully tonight I can explain that to you, but not yet. I do want to just tell you that we did this drawing while we were looking at the drawing 100% of the time. Okay, so keep that in mind. We were looking at just the object 100% of the time. Okay, so I'm going to tear this off and go to another sheet here. Now, if I was to draw a wrench from my imagination only without looking at an object, this is probably how I would draw it. And again, I'm not going to look at my wrench. I'm just going to, or not wrench, my pliers. Just going to draw it quickly here. Maybe I draw it something like that, and I don't know, maybe there's some teeth up here. And again, this is not looking at our object at all. So this is 0% of the time. Okay, so if we go back to the blind contour line drawing, this is looking at the object 100% of the time, and this is looking at the object 0% of the time. And to be honest with you, really neither one of these drawings looks like a wrench, or it looks like a pair of pliers, right? So what we need to do is we need to find something that's in the middle of looking at your object 100% of the time and looking at your object 0% of the time, looking at the paper 100% of the time. So logically, the midpoint is 50%. So when we're creating drawings from observation, it's important for us to understand that drawing is 50% observation. Now that's just a relative amount. You may spend more time looking at your object, but a large part of your time that you use for drawing should be looking at your object. Because if we go back to this process, eye to the brain to the hand to the paper, okay? Your eyes and your brain are pretty important in the process. So the actual action of making marks should be 50% of the time, and what happens with your eyes and your brain should be the other 50% of the time. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip to another sheet of paper, and I'm going to look at my pliers again. I haven't moved them, they're still sitting on the book in front of me. And I'm going to look at the object 50% of the time and then I'm going to make marks on my surface the other 50% of the time. Now what I mean by that is not stare at your object. Let's say we're doing the drawing for 5 minutes. Not stare at your object for 2.5 minutes, try to remember everything, and then make marks on the surface. Instead, it's a process of looking at the object, taking that information and putting it on your paper. Looking at the object, putting that information and putting it on your paper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And of course you have permission to look at your paper when you are drawing. So I'm going to go back and forth between the pliers and the information that I see on the pliers. And what's going on in my mind really is, oh, there's a line right there, that line curves that way, there's a relationship between that line and that shape, and that's really what I'm thinking about. Instead of thinking, hey, I'm drawing pliers, I need to draw pliers the way pliers look. Instead, I'm just looking at the shapes and forms that make up those pliers. And this is really what observational drawing is all about. 50% observation. And once you know that, and once you apply it to drawing, you can draw anything. No limitations. Looks like here I started my pliers a little close to the center of the paper, so the handles might run off the side. It's not about, hey, I can draw this or I can draw that. It's really, you can draw anything. It's about practicing observation. Finding the midpoint between observation and the action of putting marks on your surface. 50% observation. Now we can go back and enhance our line quality if we want, once we've got the basic structure of things down here. And I'm trying to go quick because we have actually a lot to do. These are definitely looking more like a representational set of pliers. And if you're drawing along, I hope that your drawing is looking like the object that you're looking at, no matter how simple or complex it may be. And it's a good idea to every once in a while do a blind contour line drawing of an object, and then sit back and do one where you're concentrating on having 50% of that time spent really looking at the object. Again, it's back and forth. Finding information and putting that information on your paper. And I'm just going to quickly draw a little bit of an indication of shadow, some cast shadow. All right, so again, this is 50% observation So if we go back here to the blind contour line drawing, 100% observation. It kind of looks like I tried to do a drawing in an earthquake a little bit. And then our second drawing, where we didn't look at the object at all. And then our third drawing, of course, where we really got to the nuts and bolts of it, and we looked at our object 50% of the time. So drawing is 50% observation. So that was really the first part of what we wanted to cover tonight, is just talking about the basics, like I said, the nuts and bolts of understanding observational drawing. Drawing is all about observation, really, drawing representationally anyway. And when you understand that the process should be 50% about observation, then you can't really go wrong. If you're looking at what you're drawing and you're finding the information and putting it on your paper, you're good to go. Just remember, your eyes and your brains are 50% of the cycle for drawing. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about when you want to create objects that you don't necessarily have a reference for, and you're going to be drawing from imagination. So how can you take what you learn about observational drawing and apply it to drawing with your imagination? Well, the first thing is, a lot of people who are really good at drawing from their imagination have had a lot of practice drawing from observation, and because of that, because you practice something, you automatically kind of learn the process to go about drawing certain items. If I sat here and drew this set of pliers over and over again from observation, I would eventually get to the point where I could draw them pretty well from imagination without having to look at a pair of pliers. So there's a little skill, I guess, that I've picked up years ago, and instead of thinking outside of the box, instead we need to think about drawing within the box. And what I mean by that is, you can basically take any structure, any form, and enclose it within a box or a cubic type shape. And when you do that, it's almost like you carve the object out of that form. So let me show you what I mean. And I've got an arsenal of drawing tools over here. I've got my HB pencil, I've got a black ink pen, I've got my General's pencil, I've got my felt tip pen, which I'm going to use in just a moment. I also have an F pencil, a 6B pencil, and a 7H pencil. Definitely won't be using the 7H pencil. And I also have my graphite stick here. I don't know if I'm going to use all these or not, but they're laying around. So next I'm going to go to the felt tip marker. So again, we can encase things within a cube, and if we carve out the items that we're trying to draw from within that cube, it makes drawing items, especially when we're drawing them from our imagination, definitely a whole lot easier to manage. So I'm going to start off with something simple. Let's say that you wanted to draw a chair and you didn't have the chair laying around. I'm going to show you how easy it is to carve out a chair out of a cube shape. So I'm going to just very quickly draw a cube. Now you can put this cube into 1 or 2 point perspective if you want. I'm not going to crack out the ruler or anything for this. I'm just going to kind of lightly sketch it. So we have a cube here. Now let's just imagine the back of the chair extends up beyond the cube. So if we continue to extend this portion up, we have the back of the chair. You can already kind of see that shape coming out there, the shape of a chair. If we wanted to, we can cut off the top here and make it a little bit more three-dimensional. And maybe there's a couple of braces that come down on the back of the chair. And this is the part where people sit down. We can make it a little thicker. And in fact, we can kind of have a little bit of curve up here. And you can kind of see I'm kind of just carving this chair out of that cube shape. And maybe we'll have a couple of legs come down here. And instead of having them just sit flat on the floor, let's have them curve around, go all the way to the back, and then wrap around. Let's see how that works out. There we go. Let that wrap around, and we'll let this side come down too. So you can imagine if you were trying to design a chair, this would be definitely a great way to go. And we'll just add a little bit of shading to the side, so we give it a little bit of the illusion of form here. And so very quickly out of this cube form, we have drawn a chair. Let's do another one real quick. So I'm going to do the same thing. Start with a cube. Kind of think about this cube as being kind of like a block of wood. Sometimes helps. Alright, again we'll have the back portion of the chair there. And let's make this one a little bit more curved. So it'll come up and we'll just kind of curve or carve that curved shape out. We'll let this one come down like this. And kind of the similar form as this one. This one will be a decidedly plastic looking chair. You bring that leg up, and again I'm just kind of carving it out of the cube shape that I've got here as a structure. Let that come down right there. And maybe there's a little plastic piece for support back here. It comes in. It's a pretty cool looking chair. It's got a little hole in the back here. Maybe there's some cushion back here or something. Alright, so two different chairs cut out of the cubes. And let's take it a step further. Let's say that you wanted to create a couch. And so a couch would be more of a rectangle. And I'm starting with these simple forms here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. You get a good idea of drawing within the box. It's a good way to think of it. Okay, let's see. So let's say this couch has a big arm that comes out right here. Let that come down. Then on the other side, the same thing. And there's a little bit of space here. There we go. And let's say the mid part of the couch is right here, where the cushions kind of meet. And this will be the front edge of the couch. There we go. And if we wanted to, we can add kind of a rounded edge to it. And we'll add just a little bit of value here so the form looks a little bit more believable. Okay, again, right out of a cube. So you can almost break anything down into a cube. So I'm going to take it just one step further and draw something that's still a little bit rectangular, but a lot of people think is a little bit difficult to draw, and that's a car. So let's see. We're going to start again with a cube, and so this will be the front of the car. And cube maybe is a little bit of a loose term since this is more of a rectangular kind of form here. All right, so I'm envisioning this to be the front of the car, and this is where the wheel wells of the car will be, and maybe we'll make the cabin of the car. Let's see, where would be a good place to start it? We'll start it about right here, and again I'm just going to make another cube right on top of the one I've already drawn. So that'll be the cabin of my car. And I'm just going to bring maybe another geometric shape down here. Just like that. Okay, now I can carve out the wheel wells. Hard to say wheel wells. And I'll just make them about right here. And we'll have another one right here. Kind of going back. We'll come back and put the wheels in just a moment. And let's say this is the front of our car, so we're just going to kind of let it come down a little bit, and I'm just kind of making this up, so I'm not really sure what kind of car this would be. Since we're making it up, I guess it's whatever kind of car we want it to be. And I'll just let the windshield kind of come up from that cube shape right on top that we determined to be the cab. And let the back end kind of come down here. And slowly our car is starting to emerge here. And we'll put just kind of a sharp line over here and a couple of headlights here. Little detail thing there. Maybe the mirror. And then the front of the hood here. And our car is starting to come together a little bit, starting to look a little bit like a car. And then we'll put a couple of ellipses here for the actual wheels, and we'll have the tires come underneath. And again, I'm taking all of this basically out of that cube shape. So again, we always want to think outside of the box. Well, you can kind of remember this process by drawing within the box, just like carving things out. When I was younger, I was in organization called the Cub Scouts. I'm sure you've probably heard of them. And we made Pinewood Derby cars. And you start with a block of wood for that, and you carve the car out from that block of wood. And it's kind of a good way to think of this process as well. So just a little bit of shading. I'm going very quickly here so we can get to our third exercise. After we are done thinking outside of the box, or thinking inside of the box, we're going to think outside of the box. And if you've never drawn with a felt tip pen before, I'd highly recommend it. What's great about a felt tip pen is if I want to make a very light line, I have that ability. But if I want to put a little bit more pressure down, make a thick line, also have that too. So you have like instant line quality with a felt tip pen. And it's not for everybody. It's also nice to draw with a pen sometimes because it helps you make your marks, helps you get a little bit more deliberate with your marks, which is good. And you're kind of forced to keep all the other lines that you put on there too, which also makes a drawing more interesting in my opinion. So again, here we're talking about drawing within the box. Okay, so whenever you have complex subjects that you want to draw from imagination, start with a box and start carving them out. So I see a question. You move your entire arm when you're drawing. I usually just move my wrist. Does it make a difference? Excellent question. Yes, I do try to draw with my shoulder, and the reason for that is you just have a little bit more flexibility with your shoulder than you do with your wrist. For example, if I was to draw a circle, if I try to draw a circle with my wrist, probably most of us will draw kind of a ovally looking circle like that, or maybe it's like that or something like that. But if you use your shoulder and kind of keep your wrist tight and slowly make several circles as you go down to the surface, you actually have more control. So yes, I do draw with my shoulder because I have more control with my shoulder. And for a while I was a golf coach actually, and when you see people putt when they're playing golf with a putter, you actually have a better chance of putting the ball in the hole when you move only your shoulders and not your wrist. If you've ever gone to a miniature golf place and tried to putt with your wrist, you don't have a lot of control with it. But if you move your shoulders, you actually have more control. So it's kind of interesting that you have more control with your shoulder than your wrist, but I find that you do. Excellent question. All right, so let's move on to the last thing that we're going to do. And I see we're doing really well on time. So if I've got some more time at the end, I might try to draw some more things within the box. But before we go back to that, let's talk a little bit about thinking outside of the box. Creativity is something that's important for any artist. The last two things we talked about here are about developing a skill for drawing. And anybody can really develop a skill for drawing. I truly believe that if you have the desire to work hard and get better at it, drawing is really closely aligned to a sport or a musical instrument. All you need is to have someone to show you how to do that, and then after that it's about practice. And the more you practice, obviously, the better you're going to get at something. So drawing is a skill that can be learned, and I feel like it can be learned by anybody. But the creativity part is the part that really distinguishes artists from just people who can draw well. So it's a good idea to practice your creativity. And you might say, well, Matt, you can't practice creativity. That's something you're born with. That's something else I don't buy into. I believe that creativity is kind of like a muscle, and the more you use it, you actually you become more creative. The more you use your creativity, the better you get at it. So it's like a muscle. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a creativity enhancing drawing exercise. And this is where you come in. I'm prepared if there's no suggestions, but I do have some cups with suggestions in it just in case. So you'll need to get a new sheet of paper if you're working along with me. And what I want you to do on that paper with a pencil, not a pen this time, just draw a geometric shape somewhere on the surface. And I'm going to draw a circle. For those of you who aren't sure what a geometric shape is, geometric shapes are shapes that usually have a mathematical formula associated with them. Circle, square, triangle, pyramid, or not pyramid, pentagram, is it pentagram? Octagon. Yeah, pentagram is one of them. Pentagon. I'm sorry, not pentagram. Pentagram is the upside down star thing. It's been a long day, and it's getting late at night. Anyway, a geometric shape generally has a name associated with it, and they're generally man-made, and usually there's a mathematical formula associated with it. An organic shape is one that doesn't really follow a rule, like a circle. There's not really geometric formulas that exist for it. So I want you to draw one geometric shape and then one organic shape somewhere on your paper, and it doesn't need to look like mine. It can look completely different from mine. Just make sure those shapes are on there. And then one line. And that line can be really anything that you want. Then what you will do is we'll ask for some suggestions. So what I need now is for anybody to suggest an animal, a place, and an activity. So any animal, any place, or any activity. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn these shapes and this line into, okay, first location, mountains. So mountains is going to be one of our things that we are going to include in the drawing. So the location is in the mountains. So now I need to have an animal, a cougar, all right? So a cougar in the mountains. You guys are making this easy. And then an activity. If anybody wants to add an activity, they can. If I don't get one, okay, running. So we've got a cougar in the mountains running. That's too easy, guys. That seems pretty logical. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take your shapes and your line, and I want you to turn it into a cougar running in the mountains. Now, okay, I like an elephant doing jumping jacks too, but right now let's go ahead and stick with a cougar running in the mountains. And so take your shapes and turn them into a cougar running in the mountains. And I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to look at it for a minute and try to figure out how I can turn this into a cougar running in the mountains. Okay, so I think I've got an idea. And really the goal here is not to erase anything, but to add to the drawing. So I'm kind of envisioning this as maybe this could be a road. And also our goal here is not to create a masterpiece work of art. Okay, so don't hold yourself to that level. And we've got some mountains off here in the distance. And then I'm going to let this circle basically be a sun or a moon. We'll decide on that in just a moment. Alright, this is going to be my cougar. And again, it's challenging because we're not using any photo reference. We have to kind of work from our imagination. And if it looks cartoony, that's okay too. Really, I have no experience with cougars. That's probably a good thing. Don't run into cougars too much on a daily basis. It does get fun though when you do some illogical things like elephants doing jumping jacks. It's also pretty fun. And the creative part really happens in the beginning stages here when you're trying to look at those. It's too late for that now. The cougar is not jumping over the sun. Cougars have spots, don't they? That's what I'm turning this into, a spot up here. You can erase marks that you made yourself. I'm going to switch over to my graphite stick here so the lines are just a little bit bolder. It's hard to draw without a reference, especially something you're unfamiliar with, like cougars. And I don't think that's necessarily how a cougar would run with all four legs sticking out like that, but that's okay. So put a little bit of shading underneath it. Kind of looks like a cougar pig or something. Struggling to look like a cougar. Definitely looks like some type of animal though. Alright, we'll put it on a row here. And then we'll make our mountains a little bit more defined back here. Maybe a little bit of shadow under our cougar pig looking beast. Make the sun just a little bit stronger. Add some grass blades up here. Alright, so we're struggling a little bit. Yeah, not bad. It is a hyena. That's exactly what it looks like. It definitely doesn't look like a cougar, but at least that was a good starting point. Maybe going back to what I said earlier about getting some practice drawing things and then being able to draw them from imagination. Maybe I need to practice drawing cougars more. But anyway, the whole point here is to flex your creativity a little bit. So during the process, I was able to kind of visualize a scene that didn't exist and put it on my paper using the organic and geometric shape and the line. So I'm going to do another one. And we can do something a little bit more crazy this time. Oh yeah, cougars probably do need a tail. I might revisit. Maybe the tail's hidden behind there. All right, so again, let's do this again now that you kind of get an idea of the process. But this time, I'm going to pull stuff out of my containers. So again, we're going to start with a geometric shape, and this time I'll do a triangle. And I hope that you are doing this as well, because it's not as fun if you're not doing it. And we'll do a organic shape here, and organic shape there, and then a line. So let's make this line kind of come down like that. All right. So I've got 3 containers here, and mine are crazy. Mine aren't like a cougar running over the mountains. Mine are more like elephants doing jumping jacks. So I'll pull one out here. We got an ostrich. Okay, so we're gonna, first thing is an ostrich. Hope I spelled that right. I am not a very good speller. Alright, the next container here, driving a car. Okay, so we've got an ostrich driving a car. And let's just see their location. Awesome. An ostrich driving a car in New York City. And as you know, New York City is a pretty detailed place. So we'll see. Oh, I like this. I just scrolled down. A smart car. Let's see here. A smart car with his head sticking out of the top. All right. All right. So let's turn our drawing into an ostrich driving a car in New York City. New York City. All right. So I think I've got a pretty good idea of where my ostrich needs to be. Now I just need to figure out what I need to do with the 2 other shapes. All right. Driving a car in New York City. All right. So let's start with a car right here. And I'm going to make it a convertible. And I am going to have to make this one a little bit cartoony just so it will fit in there. And I'm going to use some loose lines for this. Now, right now, this is going to be my ostrich. Ostriches are probably a little bit, I don't want to speak too soon. I was going to say they're probably a little easier than a cougar. But I also don't have any experience with ostriches. In fact, I'm not really sure. I'm sure there are people who have lots of experiences with ostriches, but I'm not one of them. Alright, so this ostrich has kind of a broken neck. And you know what? Ostriches don't have hands either. So they're going to be, this is a HB pencil. Notice this was picked out a number 2 pencil, regular old number 2 pencil. But I will revisit it in just a moment with my graphite stick, which is about equivalent to really about 6B. So what would an ostrich drive with? Well, you know what? We can give ostriches hands. There's no rules about that. Would it still be an ostrich if it has hands? Maybe it's driving with its little bird feet. And I'm going to go ahead and give this ostrich some driving glasses. There we go. And if he's a good ostrich, he should be wearing a seatbelt. Put another seat over here. And again, I'll just remind you, I know you probably have already figured this out or remember us saying this is not about making a masterpiece at all. This is not about creating a drawing that you're going to hang on the wall or probably even show to anyone. It is about just flexing that creativity so that it becomes stronger and you get better at problem solving when you are creating your own drawings. Alright, so let's put them on a road here, going down the middle of New York City. We'll just make some buildings here real quick. And I just lost my chat box, so I'll just bring it up. Bring it back up here. Alright, I'm not really sure what to do with this thing right here, or really this thing. Still haven't figured that out. Let's see, let's make this the a sign that comes off of a store over here. Oh, that's a good suggestion. The organic shape does look like a scarf. Let's see if we can make that happen. That is a very good. So it's coming forward here. Alright, we'll switch over. Let's make it a dark scarf here. Very good suggestion. Very nice to get some help with that. Alright, so I just switched over to my 6B here. We're about equivalent to a 6B, just so you can see things a little clearer. And let's just, this is the cafe here. And then maybe we have a sidewalk. Right here, and then off in the distance, to make sure we know it's New York City. Statue of Liberty is way off in the distance. I don't know if you'd be able to see it down a city street. I doubt you would be. Put the Empire State Building back here. He just blew his nose and that's Kleenex. That's pretty good. Alright, a little bit of shadow underneath there. Alright, I think that's a good enough deal here. So anyway, a major deviation from what we usually do on the live lessons here at thevirtualinstructor.com. But I hope you enjoyed the deviation. I hope it was a little bit fun to make crazy drawings of ostriches in a car driving down New York City is always fun. But Also, the point of doing this is to enhance your creativity. So hopefully you'll put this into practice and flex that creativity muscle. Also, just to kind of recap what we talked about in the beginning, completely different. Drawing from observation is a process, your eye to your brain, to your hand, to the surface of your paper. And that process should be an ongoing thing that happens all during the process of drawing. Just remember that 50% of drawing is observation. So I hope you'll do some blind contour line drawings to kind of beef up your hand-eye coordination, but always keep in mind that when you're looking at your object half the time, making marks the other half of the time, you're going to do a pretty good job at drawing whatever you're trying to draw. Then we also talked about, instead of thinking or drawing outside of the box, drawing within the box. So if you're trying to draw things from imagination, it's a good idea to try to break it down into a simple geometric form. Most simple geometric form is a cube, and kind of carve the object that you're drawing out of the cube. So if you're a member, I look forward to having you next week. If you're not, I hope you'll consider being a member and being a part of our live lessons each week. If not, enjoyed having you guys. Have a nice evening.